Hello, everybody. This is Avenel Wing with the O Lab, and we are coming to you as part of our Twitch Teach Out today. We're going to be chatting with the MITS team, which stands for Masters of Information Technology Strategy. I'm going to let Erik, who is the advisor for this team, introduce everybody and tell you a little bit about the project.
All right, thanks, Abby. So my name is Erik Harpstead. I'm a system scientist in the Human Computer Interaction Institute, working in the O Lab, and I've been advising the team here to help us put together a toolkit to support doing research on Twitch. And so fitting that we're doing this on Twitch right now. And so today we have 3 members of the team, Jeremy, Ray, and Sunny. And then there's a 4th member of the team, Rand, who couldn't make it. But I will let Jeremy take over and maybe introduce some of the work they've been doing, talk a little bit about what they're doing, and then we can kind of discuss as we go.
Yeah, of course. This is basically our master program's capstone project, and it is in a 2-semester settings. We just finished our first semester where we were learning a little bit more about the existing codebase that we had, and then also figuring out some of the strategical challenges or directions that we're going to do during the summer, and then also kind of iron down what are some of the features or functionalities we plan to do during the summer. So for the summer part, we're mainly going to be focused on the development part of this project, and then we hope that by the end of summer we can have made some significant improvement upon the existing functionalities.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit, if you will, one of you, about why a toolkit for, like, what research is happening on Twitch and why is this important? What are you working on ultimately? Jeremy, I'm going to bounce that to you and then we'll have Ray chime in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so we were talking with Erik and see, what are like you said, how exactly can this toolkit benefits research? And then we learned that some of the research could really use the data from Twitch streaming, especially the researches related to human and computer interaction. For example, we have a game aware research project where the researcher would really like to know how viewers are interacting with and game aware extension. So just to give you a little bit more background, game aware extension basically is like an overlay on a stream panel that shows maybe information even not available to the streamer. For example, in a Hearthstone game, a viewer can view, what cards do both players have, while that's not some kind of information that's available to the streamers. So yeah, and then what we're doing here is we're trying to capture these data from either using Twitch's API or capturing those from just the video and audio streams that we send to Twitch, and then provide an easy to use and easy to understand interface for researchers.
So I would take on. It's actually there have been some really exciting research being done on the Twitch platform. For instance, during the semester, we interviewed a scholar called whose name is Joseph Searing. He studied the hate speeches and all sorts of stuff on the Twitch platform. For instance, some may have some hate speeches towards the LGBTQ community, and what he's trying to do is to develop some kind of mechanism that identifies such speeches and remove them from the chat, so that the chat, they can create a more harmonious environment for the streamers. So all that can be based on the toolkit we're building, in which we integrate all kinds of data stream and try to make them useful for the researchers. And for instance, specifically, Joseph had asked us to try to build an environment which simulate the chat stream, so that he can train some sort of agents to identify the hate speeches he was talking about. And via the toolkit we are building, we can try to realize such functionalities in the future if we were able to build such toolkit in the summer. So yeah, it's pretty exciting, and there's a lot of stuff to do. Thank you.
You're on mute, Abby. You're on mute, Abby.
I'm muted. That's annoying. Okay, sorry, team. What I was saying is I sit on the inside of the team, so I know what the data is, right, that's being collected. But can one of you, maybe Sunny or Ray, chime in and tell us, when we're collecting data for researchers to look at, what is that information? What is it that's being captured? Because a lot of things happen on Twitch, and I don't think that for your standard viewer that it's necessarily transparent that some of it is data that could be researched.
Yeah, so I can take on the question. So basically, there are many types of data via the Twitch stream. For instance, the most apparently, we have video, we have the chat messages in the and also the audio data. That's a possible data type. For instance, we can separate that from the video for researchers to use, and also we can use the chat messages to do some analysis on the specific topic they're talking about. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So this text messages, video, and audio, those are the three main types of data we're trying to capture. And also, as Jeremy just mentioned earlier, if we were to move on to do some stuff with game aware streaming, so we will even be able to capture data from the game that the streamers are actually playing. That would be like a more advanced step, but like they're all built upon that, our ability to create those three types of data: the chat messages, the video, and the audio. Yeah.
Excellent. And when you say use, I mean, you then jumped to the verb analyze, but when they're looking at this data, what sorts of things are they looking at? What are they studying? How are they using that information? Sunny, do you want to go ahead, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think there's another very important channel of data that we're collecting. It's the events that happens in the stream. So we have the ability to collect, when does somebody subscribe to the channel, when does someone like a channel or sends out a little gift or something, and then usually we can correlate those events together with the audio and then video we collected, and then we'll be able to see, there's interesting interaction that happened at this place, and then so that would be something interesting to look at.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so in trying to figure out how to build an interesting and useful toolkit for researchers, what did you consider? What factors went into deciding how to structure your toolkit, and what direction did you end up going?
So I think I can take on this question. So I think there are two major principles we're considering when we're building our toolkit. The first one is it's from the perspective of developers, and also we are considering the users. So the first one is the usability, because like a majority of the users, and they might not have a technical background, so we want to make the toolkit easy for them to use. For instance, you don't have to jump back and forth through pages to find the data you just recorded. And also, if you want to, transfer data from your local channel online, so we make sure that is easy to do. And also, if the user want to start recording on a new channel, he does not need to go to the backend codes and figure out for himself, because we must done that for them. So, and the other perspective is from the perspective of the developer. That's us. We want to make the system scalable. That is, that our system is able to meet the demands of different workload. For instance, because the data we're storing might be increasing at a speed as our users increases. We want to make sure that our database or our servers is able to maintain a high efficiency while making the best use of our current resources. So that's the direction we're considering. But since we're still at a stage where we're trying to figure out where we're going during the summer, so I won't say for certain the exact direction we're heading, but we have a clear idea about what we're going to do. Thank you.
I think just to chime in here a little bit, one of the major direction that we're going to work on is provide an interface to annotate or label a specific timestamp in a stream capturing. So currently our toolkits, it just capture all of the data, and then along with the events, kind of things. However, that kind of relies on what we can collect from the Twitch side, and then it doesn't give us the ability to customize the things that we want to look at. However, with this labeling functionality, a researcher can say, this event it's part of that collection, and then that particular timestamp belongs to that particular collection. And then together with this labeling functionality, we're also going to build a search functionality, so that on a later stage, if the researcher wants to do some analysis on the stream, then they can just query for a specific label, and then it's going to bring up all the moments and timestamps related to that. And then and we hope this kind of functionality could really help with their research.
And is that something that they're doing while the stream is happening, or afterwards, or both?
So I think as of right now, we're envisioning a process that happens afterwards. However, there's a way that we might be able to use Twitch extensions, and then so we can annotate events just live during the stream. And then I think that those two will be very exciting features to offer.
All right, so for our viewers that are tuning in because they're curious but don't have a background, an extension, what is that? How does that function, and why is that pertinent to what you're doing?
I can take that.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, so Twitch extension, I think it comes in multiple forms. So there's a form that is basically an overlay on the stream. So I think for some of the, for example, game streamers, they can put their maybe Instagram account or something on the stream that's kind of like above what their streaming content is. And then there's also another kind of Twitch extension that's that kind of lives outside of the stream video, but also on the stream page. And then viewers can use those extensions to interact with either the stream or an external service. And then for a little bit more deep dive in the technical side, they're basically just tiny little JavaScript front-end applications that basically runs alongside the rest of the Twitch interface.
The thing I was going to chime in with, I don't know if these are private, but there's actually 2 of the extensions are running on this channel right now. So I don't know if you have to add every individual possible viewer to even see them, but there should be one below the video and also one that's kind of hovering over the video, which are kind of like the demo versions of the extensions we're working on.
So basically, these are mostly seamless. I'm going to talk real quick about the fact that because we're collecting data and because researchers have ethics rules that they have to follow, there are opt-in, opt-out features. And I think that's an interesting thing to talk about. Because when someone says, I'm collecting data about your presence on this stream, I, of course, have wait, how do I get to control that? What's being done with that? What's the half-life on that information? And who sees it, right? And so I'm going to have Jeremy start with just a little bit of information about how you factored in privacy and what the limitations that researchers face are, because I know that's a huge component of your design process is thinking about those things.
Yes, absolutely. Just to be accordant with our IRB requirement, we have to filter out data that's not being consented. And then currently, I think we do that by sending a message into the chat every few seconds, and then just basically asking each viewer and then saying that, do you consent to your data being collected? And then if they don't consent, then we just remove their data from collection. However, we later found that even though users may not consent to data collection, the fact that their activity in the chat stream is still valuable. So we were thinking about a new way to handle opt-out, so that even when a viewer has opt-out of data collection, we just record that they said something without actually recording what they have said. So we can capture the activity and don't violate viewers' privacy at the same time.
Erik, can you do me a favor and just frame what an IRB is and how it's pertinent to and applies to what we're talking about?
Sure. So for those people, academic research stands for Institutional Review Board. And every university has one of these. Some companies even have them, where if you want to do a study that involves human subjects, you have to write up your whole plan of what your study is going to be, how you're going to recruit people, how you're going to get their consent to do data, what you're going to do with the data, how you're going to keep the data private, and all that kind of stuff. And so every study has to go through that process. And so you have to plan ahead for all of those things. So you have to line up against these various ethical guidelines that can exist at like the federal level or just the university level. And so part of this process in trying to approach this toolkit and set it up was like, we could very easily go to Twitch and just record a video. Like I could just pop up OBS over Twitch, record whatever. The Twitch chat is actually just an IRC channel. You could subscribe to it and just harvest all of the data anytime you wanted, by how the system works. But that wouldn't be ethical. And so part of the question was not just how do we turn on a giant microphone, but how do we do it in a way that respects the kinds of processes and opt-ins and such that we value as researchers. And so a lot of what we've been looking into for the various intricacies of this framework is how do we put in those ethical places? How do we put in possibilities for consent? And how do we treat data with kind of like the respect it deserves for the ethical guidelines?
Excellent. I'm glad that you touched on the fact that because it's built on an IRC foundation, you can just harvest the text. And for me, that was deeply disconcerting to discover. I was like, oh, like this, the internet really does live forever. Whereas this data exists in a very specific way and for a very specific purpose. If a researcher is interested in hearing more or wants to talk to you about your work, where do they find you? How do they connect? I think I'm going to start with Erik on that one because that's more of an institutional question. And then at the end, I'll have everybody give their social media contacts.
Sure. Yeah. So you can reach out to me if you're trying to use this toolkit or you have a use case that makes sense. My email is just harpstead@cmu.edu. And just the chat or wherever. I know some text thing is getting captured from this. And so if you have a use case where you think, I have a study I want to run on Twitch or I have a question I would have about Twitch that would be interesting, that could really help us as we go into the summer with the team and thinking about, oh, here's a really salient use case. Can we support that? Or here's a really interesting research question. Can we help with that? And so we've so far built up a couple examples, and we even did a sort of a lit review of existing research on Twitch a couple of years ago to see like how are people approaching the platform. But if you have a new question or a new use case or something, we'd love to hear it and happy to help figure out how we could do something. But yeah, reaching out to me would work. Reaching out to anyone in the OLab will probably eventually find me. And we'll see how we can work together.
Any of our social media, the OLab on Twitter, would end up filtering back to Erik because I watched that. Okay, so I would love to kind of hear a little bit of blue sky thinking from Sunny or Ray or Jeremy about how you imagine this toolkit will end up benefiting Twitch users in the future, right? This is actually, like, it sounds very basic. We're going to collect data and we're going to let researchers dig around in it. But it has a bunch of implications for how Twitch develops, how people use Twitch. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yes, so I can take this question. So we plan to build this toolkit into a kind of Python library. So researchers can just use our API or something else to they can just call our function and they can tell what information they need. So so they're using our toolkit, so it can make it more convenient for them for their research. For example, just the Jeremy just said that they want to analyze a part of a very interesting timestamp of a recording. So our toolkit will we will aggregate the data. For example, we will aggregate the chat logs or the video or the audio, and so in the same timestamp that the researcher required, and then we will send it to them. And so for different data type that the researcher is asking for, we will provide them with different kinds of forms of data. For example, if they are asking for just user information, so since those information is of basic data type, so it can be stored in some structured database. So we can just pass it through some data frame or something else, so that it can make it more efficient for researchers to fetch data or to analyze it or something else. But for if the researchers are asking for some recording or some audio, so maybe we will store them in some cloud storage, the bucket in AWS. So maybe we'll provide the links to them, and we also will design a more suitable way and more efficient way to store this kind of information.
I can also chime in a little bit on this. So for some of the data that we collected, especially on the interaction with extension side. With those data, we hope that we might one day be able to develop an extension or some sort that can really focus on what viewer really wants from a specific game or something. And then I think that kind of extensions would be really helpful for maybe like an educational game setting, where it just makes viewer easier to understand what's going on in the game. And then furthermore, maybe in a crowdsource setting, that we create some kind of extension that will allow viewers to more easily contribute to a scientific project. I think Erik may be able to provide a more concrete instance of how that might help. But I was thinking about like earlier during the breakout of COVID-19, there were a lot of crowdsourcing projects that helps with how proteins, the folding pattern of proteins. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is that for this summer we're thinking of building a little simulator for streaming environment. We has focus on the chat stream, and then with that we can replay a chat stream over and over. And then what that will allow us to do is we can more easily ramp up and train new moderators for channels to help them understand what are some of the things that we should filter out in a streaming. And then what that will help Twitch user is that hopefully the streaming it's going to have a more it's going to have a cleaner environment, and then just less hate speech, and then help Twitch to become a more inclusive and diversified community.
I love that this isn't just about getting more information to researchers, but also allowing them to create tools that improve the experience for the Twitch community, right? There's like a hop in there that isn't immediately obvious that I think is really important to the why are we doing this? Why are 5 people focusing for a semester or more thinking about this, is that there is improvement, and this has the potential to change how people actually interact or experience Twitch. Ray, did you have things you wanted to add on?
Actually, I think they've basically covered everything, but like still, I have some ideas from a high level. If we were going to talk about like how the things we're doing is going to have an impact on platforms such as Twitch, because I think it has significant usage for if you want to study the interactions between the viewers and the streamers. And for instance, Jeremy earlier talked about we can kind of keep track of the activity level in the chat stream, so that we might be able to detect events. So one thing that just popped up in my mind is that I think streamers can use such data to make their channels more attractive, because for instance, for a specific type of stream, for instance, I'm doing reaction videos, I might be able to see what kind of stuff are the users attracted to, because they usually have a higher activity level in the chat stream when something like that happens. So that from the streamer's point of view, I can make use of that data to make my channel essentially more attractive and attract more users. Yeah, I have these ideas because streaming platforms such as Twitch have been used for other reasons. For instance, in China, people are using it to make sales online. They're just promoting their product on a platform such as Twitch. I mean, if we were able to keep track of the activity level of viewers, that might be a way for if I want to sell my product online, that would be a good way to make commercials, or that's a good way to just attract users and make more sales. And that's just from another point of view. But if we're going to focus on the Twitch platform, that is what I was just talking about. That is to benefit the streamers so that their channels can become more attractive. Yeah, I think that would be my idea about how our toolkit is going to be applied to this platform. And yeah, thank you.
It's interesting because as you were talking, I was thinking that there's probably like space for exploring how donations for nonprofits get prompted, right? Someone's doing an Extra Life fundraiser, and what activity on the stream causes people to click on the donate here link? What do people just click on external links, or do they ignore them as they fly by in chat? Is there something where streamers calling a particular type of attention to those links? Are pop-ups, right, more useful than it showing up in chat? And it's interesting that we know a lot about consumer behavior in stores, right? And there's a lot of information about how color affects people's buying patterns, but we don't know if those things carry over. And so what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of exploring how people might interact differently online. That's part of this big box of opportunity that this presents. Is that a fair representation?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, because I think this kind of real-time interaction detection is really exciting, because that's what the traditional media is trying to do for probably 100 years. They're trying to say what kind of commercial or what kind of elements in their, for instance, in their films or in their televisions that attract the audience. So now we have the opportunity of detecting that in real time, so that we can determine that what exact elements that attract people. Yeah, I think that's basically my point.
It's fascinating.
And if I could add on to that too.
Yep.
The other things we're trying to do with this is make it an open framework. So the stuff, the code we're putting together, we'll be putting out, it'll be open sourced eventually, so that other people can do these kinds of studies using a similar approach. And part of the interest in that is a lot of the research that is being done on stuff on Twitch is heavily focused on things like esports or particular kinds of IRL. Like if you click on the browse button, basically the stuff that's at the top of the list is what it tends to get studied the most. But there's all these other kinds of uses for live streaming that people are inventing all the time. And so building a toolkit that can be used to help us understand those kinds of interactions, those kinds of things that maybe weren't first built for live streaming, but now are being used in live streaming, is kind of another motivation that we have here. Is so similar to like what Ray was saying, where like we sort of look at different kinds of usages that might not exist already. We have a toolkit to kind of start looking at those and understanding them, rather than waiting for them to become popular and then become studied.
That's interesting, and also possibly even predicting where things are going to develop next and how people might pivot to use live streaming. I'm quite sure that there are things happening on Twitch today that nobody imagined in February 2020. Right. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about the challenges that you've faced in developing the toolkit and what your kind of foundational thinking is for overcoming those challenges. Ray had some really interesting things to say on the last one, so I'm going to bounce it to Jeremy and then to Sunny and then over to Ray.
Okay, yeah. So I think one of the challenge that we face is that because we're inheriting an existing code base, there are a lot of nitty-gritty stuff that we need to figure out just by having to review how the code works. And then one of the things that we noticed that we didn't have a very clear big picture of how the entire system works. So we kind of have to just trace the data flow through all kinds of functions, modules, and eventually figure that out ourselves. And then now that we have gotten familiar with the code base, I think going forward, for future team that might be working on this, or other researchers that might be using the open source toolkit, we're definitely going to building a lot more documentations than we once had, and then we hope that that will help people picking up this project more easily.
Excellent. Sunny?
Yeah, I think so. One challenging is that, like, since the data is of various type, and like for an audio or for video, like they have a very large size. So how to get just a chunk of this data? Like if for example, if we just have a text, we can just like search it by keywords or something else. But like for audio or for a video, like it's more like a kind of string, right? So how can we get just a chunk of it? So how can we search it according to some specific features? So this is a problem that we need to consider.
I imagine that's more complicated because streams often run for hours and have varying activity levels over the course of that time. So you end up with very big data files, correct?
Yeah. So I think one way we can do that is like to search it by some certain timestamp. Like we can get some timestamp points based on some other kind of channels which are more easy to search for, and we get the timestamp from those channels. Then we use these points to chunk the data in audio and video.
That's fascinating. That's a very sort of specific to this art form issue that you have to figure out how to overcome.
I think I can chime in on this real quick, because we were thinking about the amount of video that we have to store. Erik actually raised a pretty interesting idea: is that instead of storing the raw videos themselves, which it's just huge depending on the resolution you record at, we can store a couple of keyframes and transitional frames of the videos instead. So now we're talking storing pictures instead of videos, and then we just did some estimation on that, and it seems like it's going to save us around 80% of the storage costs just by doing this change. Of course, there might be some implications that was caused by this change. Maybe there's some information that's stored in video file that's not obvious to us at first glance, and then now that we're storing the keyframes instead, we actually lost those information. So this is definitely one of the direction that we will want to experiment on during the summer.
Yeah, also, and like for the chat logs, so instead of storing all the text, all the chat in our database, we can just like store some metadata, like such as we can store its frequency or like how many people join the chats in a certain time span. So like I think they will be enough for some analysis. So we can just store it, and it can save very much storage space.
So it sounds like one of the challenges that you're facing is adjusting what is captured and stored so that different researchers can have access to different cross sections of information when they actually start digging around in the data. Okay, Ray, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, now that we've covered basically not all, but like part of the technical stuff, technical challenges we're facing. But like, actually, we spend the majority of time during this semester trying to figure out what we're going to do about our project, because, it's great to have a solid consensus on what we're trying to achieve, because I think the previous team has done great work, but we do not actually have like a coherent goal for what kind of things we're looking for in this toolkit, because they've developed some basic data capture functionalities, and they have some basic front end stuff to, for instance, to ask for user consent on the Twitch overlay as a Twitch overlay, and all that. So that we spend the majority of our time trying to figure out a clear goal of what we're trying to achieve. So I think to do that, we've interviewed several researchers from the field who are currently studying Twitch related topics, and based on their need and our analysis, the technical analysis, basically what things are possible for us to achieve during we have like less than 3 months left during that time period. What kind of stuff are we going to achieve? And we spend a lot of time just to evaluating and going through our spec. And I think that would be like kind of a high level challenges we have dealt with throughout the semester. That is figure out exactly what we're going to do, like what kind of functionalities are we trying to accomplish. Thank you.
So that's an interesting point, because Erik described this as an open framework, but if you don't know how it's going to be used, creating things that do verbs, right? Actually getting to this thing, verbs this way, seems very complicated and very kind of nebulous. I'm curious and I'm going to start with Ray and go in reverse order this time, and you can opt out by thumbs downing if you don't have anything to say. Was there anything in your conversations with researchers that you were actually really surprised or excited by, that they were like, hey, here's this thing we're doing and maybe you could help me with it? Were you in those interviews? Was there anything that you hadn't thought of or that you were really excited by?
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm really excited about is the thing that Jeremy mentioned earlier, that is the simulated stream. I have never think of that I have never think of the idea of using the Twitch stream as kind of like a training environment for some kind of artificial intelligence moderator for the chat stream. I think that would be like a really interesting point if we were to develop our toolkit, because it enables us to use pre-recorded data to bring some kind of agent that would be used for future streaming purposes. So that's basically my idea.
I'm fascinated by that because Twitch brings in such a diverse audience that I feel like training AI using Twitch actually skews where your biases land and gets around some of the things that are being talked about in AI training right now. Of you have to think about your programmer base and what biases are they bringing. Is that part of what, part of the value of this, maybe?
Yeah. I think the one more thing to talk about is that in order to train such agents, we have to develop some kind of chatbot that will automatically generate some kind of funny words in the chat, and so the moderators can try their best to find them, to identify them and probably remove them. But the funny thing, I think the interesting point that you just mentioned is that these chatbots are still written by humans. So what kind of behavior they're going to represent is still a question, because they are generated by programmers and we're writing script for them to behave. So whether that part is a reasonable approach is still, I think we still have to look into that.
It's fascinating. Thank you, Ray. Sunny, things that you found exciting and or interesting.
Okay, so speaking of machine learning or artificial intelligence, there's another way to use it, but it may be a little bit more complex, but it's an interesting direction for research in the future. So it's like for some specific research target, like for example, they want to like it's from one of our interviewees that he said that he needs to detect some speech which hurts others or like something like that, and maybe first, so for the research part, we will use machine learning to like training some features of those speech which hurt others or like involve some like racism or something else like that, and then we may use that features to detect so what kind of to capture the certain chunk of string and record it down for the future analysis of those researchers. So I think it's interesting, but it's a little bit more complicated.
Interesting. Thank you. Jeremy.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting aspect, it's actually from our conversation with Erik. So Erik mentioned that instead of treating the stream audio as a whole piece, there's actually layers inside the stream audio. So if you think of it, a stream audio actually consists of the audio channel from the streamer, like what the streamer is talking about, and then there's also the audio from the game itself, like the sound effects, that kind of things, and then there's also the underlying audio from the operating system itself. So, for example, like when you adjust sound volumes or things like that, the notification sounds, and then it's just something that I didn't think of before, because when I thought of audio, I thought, we just record it, like it should be all the same. But now that I think of it, if we can record audio on those separate channels, then we can obviously provide more granular data. For example, when we want to analyze what kind of content or components in the stream that it's most attractive to viewers.
Interesting. I wonder too if there's a correlation, if there's space to explore the what's happening on screen and what triggers the sorts of hurtful speech, and can we train people out of that behavior? To follow up on Sunny's point of like using this to create a kinder, gentler world, and that's an interesting thought. Erik, you've been kind of in this space for a while and a little bit longer than the team. In the current round of interviews and exploration, is there anything that you found really exciting or new developments or new direction?
Yeah, so I would echo praise the simulated stream environment. I think it's just a fascinating idea. Also partly because some of my own prior work was around analyzing replays in games, so analyzing replays in streams was also very interesting to me. But one of the things that I'm really interested to explore with a toolkit like this is kind of this idea of what I've been starting to call like a cross-media conversation, which is kind of like what you were talking about, of could you detect what was going on in the video when there was some speech and then maybe led to chat. So like, for example, for anybody currently watching the stream, if I were to ask you what is the word over Jeremy's shoulder right now, and I'll probably have to wait like 6 seconds for somebody to chat the answer. But that'll be interesting because if somebody chats the answer, if anybody's actively watching, then the synchrony of that I said a thing pointing at a video that isn't even, it's on my screen, but it's not on my computer. And then somebody responds in chat, like finding that moment, which on a human level is very natural to us, but on a technical level is extremely difficult because every single one of those things is in a different channel of information. There was the 5 second or 6 second delay to get to the stream to the viewer and back. And so how can we detect these kinds of moments, both good and bad? And can we start to characterize the kinds of moments that people have and the kinds of ways that people treat chat and and things like that, and see if we're looking at different kinds of use cases for stream. So like some of our other work, which we'll I think talk about later during the teach out, is like around educational streaming. Is there certain kinds of interactions, certain kinds of cross-media conversations that are better for education versus for promotion or for something else? So that's one of the things that really drives me and my interest in helping facilitate this toolkit, because we can actually start to ask some of these questions that are like basically impossible right now, technically, even though they're extremely intuitive humanly.
Right, if you're sitting in a room watching a stream, you can talk about it and you can be like, oh, did you see that? But actually documenting it is,
right.
It just all exists on different levels. That's fascinating.
So it's like nobody's taking me up in the chat.
I tried to, but I can't actually see it. And so I was like, well, okay. All right. So then we are 5 years in the future, and the toolkit has become everything that you can imagine it being right now. And you're being interviewed on, MSNBC for your part in influencing streaming history. Sunny, what is the thing you are most excited about?
Yes, so maybe Jeremy can take this question first. So I think I need to think for a while.
Sorry, I did put you on the spot there. So, Jeremy, do you want to take it?
Yeah, for sure. I think I would be very excited, by all the research opportunities that we can enable with this toolkit, and then the researchers' outcomes that ended up feeding back to the viewers, or even something outside of Twitch that I can't imagine right now. But human computer interaction, it's existing everywhere in this world where we have computers surrounding us, just in all sorts of places. And then I think that would be I would be pretty excited by those outcomes.
Sunny, do you want me to send it to Ray, or do you want it?
Yeah, I think it's very meaningful. Like there will be some like unexpected outcomes or results that we didn't expect it to be, but I think it will be very meaningful and valuable to analyze it. How can we get this outcome, and so it can help us learn a lot from it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I guess I'm still the last one to talk, and they've covered a lot of stuff. And the first thing that comes to my mind is I'm probably going to sell all my stocks and cash out and retire, because I'm thinking of it, because I think although the stock we're building is called the research toolkit, but like essentially it's more like a data infrastructure, because we are trying to capture data from this platform and store it on the server, and and maybe distribute it in some kind of other ways. So like as I mentioned earlier, the relations of this toolkit with some of the e-commerce stuff, I can think of hundreds of applications with other platforms that more than just Twitch, because as long as we have a solid infrastructure, we can extend its usage to other areas and add more functionality to the current base. So yeah, I think the future would be pretty exciting if this thing works, and not only Twitch is going to use it, and probably all the other users who is using some kind of platform to whether it's advertising or streaming, or maybe even they can launch a political campaign on it, and we can study the voter interaction with the politicians and things like that. Yeah, I can think of a lot of ideas, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Erik, did you have anything you wanted to add in that realm of thought?
Yeah, I think for me the most interesting thing is going to be seeing what other researchers do with it. Like what other new questions we can ask, because for me that's one of the big draws is like making it possible for other people to do this kind of stuff. Because like in principle, Twitch could feasibly already do this stuff internally, and maybe they do. We don't know. And so, but so opening it up so other people can start to ask their questions and frame their own research. And so I would be really curious to see like what is the most unexpected thing that other people have done with the thing that we didn't envision when we built it. And what do we now know about kind of this really interesting mode of interaction through streaming that we didn't know before. And to me, that's one of the big draws that I'd like to see kind of in 5 years.
Excellent. Twitch, if you're listening, you know where to find us. If you're already doing this work, we would like to borrow your work, so call us. Great. So we are at just about an hour. I would love to give everybody an opportunity to add any last thoughts, and then to tell us if you have a researcher-facing outward social media, to tell us where to find you if people want to talk to you about your research. Otherwise, they can find us on the OLab and I can connect them over. So I'm going to start with, I'm not going to put Sunny on the spot. I'm going to start with Ray, and then we'll go Ray, Jeremy, and then Sunny to give us where we can find you and any closing thoughts you have.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward to reach me because I can just use the my Andrew email ID. That would be Ruijie at andrew.cmu.edu. And if you have any interesting thoughts you have about your research that might be conducted on the Twitch platform, just email me. Thank you.
Jeremy.
Yeah, similar here. I would love to hear about any thoughts or other functionality that we could build into this toolkit and then be useful to your research. And then I don't use a lot of social media, but you can reach me at my CMU email as Jeremy Chen at cmu.edu.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. Sunny.
Yeah, so you can also reach me through my email, which is yisun2@andrew.cmu.edu, and we are really looking forward to your requirements or your suggestions or anything else, because it can really help us to improve our toolkits and add more functionalities, interesting ones to it.
Excellent. Thank you, Sunny. Erik, any wrap-up thoughts?
No, I think kind of just echoing what we said earlier. If you have any interesting ideas or research questions or things you would be thinking about or things you'd be fascinated to study through Twitch, please reach out. My email, I guess, is already in the chat log, but Harpstead at cmu.edu. I'm also on Twitter at eHarpstead, but I really don't tweet all that often. Yeah, we're always open, and part of the goal here is to build a toolkit that can cover lots of different kinds of use cases. So if you have an idea, let us know, and we're happy to figure out how we might integrate it, how we might support it, and we'd like to be challenged in that way.
Having sat in on conversations when researchers have said, hey, what about this? I guarantee there's an excitement level when someone's like, oh, here's a bunch of buttons we could push to do this other thing. The team is absolutely excited to hear from you. If you want to reach out to the lab, or you just want the straightest path to reaching any of our experts here, you can reach us at the OLab, THEOH Lab LAB on Twitter, and I monitor that account and I'll forward anything over. Again, this was a MITS showcase talking about a toolkit for collecting data for researchers. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.